I watched Trump's meeting with the president of Poland today, so you don't have to, and here's my overview. We'll do the craziest things first. He talks extensively about the Great National Tariff Act of 1887, which you might have guessed does not exist. And he also at one point says that something is very wrong with Gavin Newsom's hands. Let's get into the meat of it. This was 30 minutes. He mentioned Biden 3 separate times and had to have reporters repeat questions twice. So he starts off by just saying that I don't normally endorse people, but I endorse this guy for the president of Poland, which is pretty hilarious because occasionally on his True Social, you'll just see he'll put out 15 messages in a row, just templated. This person is great for the state of Kentucky. This person is great for the state of Missouri. He does it all the time. So he endorses people all the time. He then asked the president of Poland to talk about some fighter pilot who apparently died last Thursday at an air show in Poland. While the president is trying to give a sort of eulogy to this guy, Trump interrupts him and is like, I also think he went to the Air Force Academy. So I guess he's talking about some meeting between North Korea and China and Russia that happened yesterday where he tweeted that like they were all conspiring against him. And he said that they had a beautiful ceremony, but the only reason that they did that was so that he would watch. But then he, of course, watched. So he was just getting played by them. And then he says, we'll find out in the next week or two how good his relationship is with those countries who he touts every day. He has a great relationship with their leaders. In a couple weeks, just 2 weeks, we'll figure it out. Also talking about that speech or whatever it was, he says that China hasn't thanked us enough for freeing them. I guess he's talking about in World War II because the Japanese took over the Chinese mainland in World War II. I have no idea what he's really talking about, but he's implying in some way that China should have been very thankful and should have given us praise during some speech they gave yesterday for our help in getting them independence in World War II. I guess he doesn't actually say that. I'm just having to assume here. So some Polish reporter asked him, why are there no consequences for Russia when you keep saying that there's going to be consequences for Russia and you keep pushing out this deadline? And he's like, no, there are consequences. I told India, if you buy anything from Russia, there's going to be big consequences. That's his consequences, telling someone that there's going to be big consequences. And he says, plus we haven't even rolled out phase 2 or phase 3 yet. This was just phase 1. So he's apparently got some big plan. He's not letting us know what it is, but he's got a plan. He says the Epstein files, again, are a complete hoax by the Democrats and that, like the JFK files, you'll never be satisfied no matter how much they release. And then he says that thousands of pages have already been released that were court ordered or whatever. And then he says again that it's just a hoax. And then the reporter is like, it seems like you're just covering up for a bunch of your friends. And he's like, no, the whole thing is just a hoax created by Democrats and we've released everything that we need to release. Okay. Here's a direct quote. DC is called a safe zone. It's a term. It's a term of art because it's very safe. Oh yeah, and he says he doesn't want to talk about Epstein because in reality he's ended 7 wars, and so that's the thing that we should be talking about. He can't list 7 wars because the 6th that he listed that he didn't actually end, and all of the countries have said that he had little to no input on, was only 6, not 7. So again, he just makes up numbers, and now it's 7 wars that he's ended. He really wants that Nobel Peace Prize, I'm telling you. He gets asked, do you have a message for Putin? And he says, there's no message for Putin. Putin knows where I stand. He's going to make a decision one way or another, and we're either going to be happy or we're not going to be happy. That's the art of the deal, according to Donald Trump. He gets asked about blowing up that boat yesterday and killing 11 people. He, later in the speech, will talk about how much he cares about life and how important it is to end the loss of life. But when talking about the 11 people that he killed yesterday because they were quote-unquote drug smugglers, he totally stands behind it. So apparently now drug smuggling is a capital crime that does not require due process. They can just kill you whenever they want. This one's just hilarious to me because he says it all the time, but he says, you don't know this, but Venezuela emptied all of their prisons into the US. And he says it as though this is like a state official put all these people on a bus and then drove them to the US and then dug a tunnel and then let them all out and said, go do your thing in the US. Like he makes it sound like it's some state sponsored program to just empty prisons and mental asylums into the US, as if that is or could ever have been a thing. When asked about needing a budget bill next month, he says, it doesn't matter if we put out the greatest bill ever and gave everything that the Democrats ever wanted. If it was a perfect bill for women and for men and minorities, his words, it doesn't matter. The Democrats would never give him any vote because they're sick, deranged people who all have TDS. He says that. But the number one thing he said in terms of we'll just give him everything, he says right at the beginning, if we gave a 50% tax cut, if you gave a 50% tax cut to the poor, the Democrats would vote for that. If you raised taxes on the wealthy, the Democrats would vote for that. But you were doing the exact opposite. You're taking taxes away from the wealthy and giving them to the poor. So, reverse Robin Hooding is not something the Democrats are generally going to vote for. I put this in my notes at this point, so it must have gotten really bad, but the president of Poland will not look at him. He's just like, staring at anything else to not look at Donald Trump while he just rants and raves about all these things that are his personal grievances. He says that car plants are now just pouring back into our nation after they've all been lost. Again, that's low skill manufacturing jobs that are being replaced by robots in general is what car plants are. So you're not actually talking about bringing labor jobs back into the country. He then also says that AI is going up, whatever that means. I'm just going to read from my notes from this one because I did take this one down verbatim as well. Democrats are in favor of crime. They gave us men and women's sports. They gave us open borders. They gave us transgender for everyone. They are against preventing crime. Okay. I still have no idea what transgender for everyone means, but whatever. Remember, he's talking to the president of Poland while he's doing this. He says he's talking shit about Chicago, and then he realized there's probably a bunch of Poles in Chicago, and he goes to the president. He's like, that's probably your number one city. And the president's like, yeah, there are a bunch of Polish people in Chicago, just confused. He reiterates that he thinks that the restaurants in DC are now booming, even though the statistics have showed that they're going down because people generally don't want to go out when there are police forces just patrolling their street. But he says that there are friends of his, of course, who had not gone to a restaurant in 4+ years. And now they've gone 5 times in the past 2 weeks because they can't stop raving about how safe it all is. He says that crime in DC is down 100%. Don't know what that means, except for to say there is no crime. He says that it would take 2 weeks again, to straighten out all of the crime in New Orleans. He says that New Orleans wants him to come down there, and so do the people of Chicago. It's just the crooked and deranged mayors and governors of those states who don't want them to come down there, but the people of Chicago want him to send the National Guard in. But he will also get New Orleans all fixed up in just 2 weeks. According to him, had he not sent the National Guard into LA, then there would have been no Olympics in LA. And he says that not a lot of people know this, but there's tremendous amounts of water in California. And then he says that there's something wrong with Gavin Newsom's hands. I know I mentioned that at the beginning, but with all that's been going on with his hands, pretty hilarious. Oh yeah, because he talked about the LA fires, I might as well mention this too. He says that he sent in the National Guard to open up the water in LA, and had that water just been opened up, because again, he thinks there's just some big old faucet that he can just turn on. Had that water been opened up, then there would have been no fires because, as he puts it, the sprinkler systems would have worked in all the houses. So he doesn't know how wildfires work at all. A reporter asks him, will you go to a restaurant in DC because you didn't go during your first administration, you haven't been during this one? And he says, how do you know that? And the reporter starts saying, well, it's pretty well documented. And he's like, do you want me to prove you wrong? Do you want me to prove you wrong? And then he says, it's something we would consider. He literally said he's afraid to go to Baltimore. That's just standalone. Said he's afraid to go to Baltimore. After mentioning the fake Great National Tariff Act of 1887, a year he was really stuck on. I don't know if he was thinking about the Smoot-Hawley from 1930 or the Tariff Act of 1789. Could have been thinking about either one of those. Didn't know a correct number either way. After talking about that, he said it took us 25 to 30 years to recover from the Great Depression. We recovered from the Great Depression and ended up as the leading world superpower at the end of World War II, which ended 16 years after the Great Depression started. So not 25 to 30 years. Oh yeah, he also says that the Great Depression was caused by income tax. He says that 4 of the 7 wars that he's ended, supposedly, were ended because of tariff pressure that he was going to put on. He keeps making this claim that billions and billions of dollars are coming in from tariffs. And in fact, at one point he says, we have trillions coming in from tariffs. And if we didn't have tariffs, we would be a very poor nation. And finally, he says that the EU is happy to pay us trillions of dollars in tariffs. Now, again, what's happening is he's being played by world leaders, and they're more than happy for him to think that they're paying tariffs when in fact it's us, the US consumer, who pays the tariffs. So when he's saying that the EU is more than happy to pay $1 trillion in tariffs, the EU is more than happy for him to charge us $1 trillion in tariffs. Because again, a tariff is a tax on an imported good paid by the importer that is then passed down to the consumer, aka you, every time. Hey, 10%ers, I did not think that would take 9 minutes, but it did, and here we are. One thing, I'm not going to watch the speech from yesterday at this point because he just talked shit about Colorado apparently and said other stupid stuff. I don't need to go into it, and I know how great Colorado is because I live here. My favorite thing about these is he always starts it off in these meetings. He's like, we're going to talk about trade, and we're going to talk about security, and he like says all these things that they're going to talk about for about a minute and a half, and then immediately is like, any questions? And it turns into this absolute mess right off the bat. It is so funny and so hilarious. I mean, this one was actually quite hilarious because he was not there at all and definitely propped up on something. But yeah, thanks for sticking around for 10 minutes. I know for some of you, this is the favorite 10 minutes of your day, and I'm glad you're here for it with me. Thanks.